Hi, everybody.
Hello, I'm Ryan.
I'm Bethany.
And we are Ryan and Bethany Board Game Reviews.
And today we'll be talking about Mountains Out of Molehills. It is pretty fun. It is designed by Jim Tecamilio, Patrick Marino, and it is published by The Op.
All right, you guys, I love the name of this game. Just right out of the gate, when I first heard it was a title of a game, I am a person who does make metaphorical mountains out of molehills. I take things, I blow them out of proportion every time. And so that was this game speaks to me in that way.
You guys, this is great news. I can cancel that scheduled intervention I had for you about this very topic.
But listen, we're not talking about the metaphorical version of this game. We're talking about the literal mountains out of molehills. You are trying to be moles running around the underground, and as you're doing that, you're pushing up dirt, building mountains, trying to build the highest mountains you can that you control. This game is wild. It is two-leveled, two-layered. Let me show you how it works. All right, here's our setup for Mountains Out of Molehills. As you can see, we have an above ground, kind of a grassy field, but then we also have our below ground. This is where our moles are going to be actually moving around. And as in real life, when moles move around underground, they push up dirt above ground, making those classic molehills. We're kind of simulating and showing a two-player game here, but if you reverse those boards, there's actually spots for 3 and 4 players, which has a lot more room for these moles to run around and run into each other. The game is played over 6 rounds, and each round we're going to deal out a number of these cards based off the number of players. So in a 2-player game, you do 5 times the number of players, which is 2. We're going to set out 10 cards. We're going to take turns drafting those cards into our hands, and then out of those hands of cards, we're going to kind of program our moles of what they want to do. Underground, it's dark. They can't see where they're going to go, so they have to program their moves ahead of time before they start moving. The kind of cards you might see are some movement cards like this. We've got 1, 2, and 3 movement cards. Also, when it'll lead to turn, we have one that lets you choose to turn either left or right, but then you can also have cards that say you can turn and do a move. And you can resolve that in any order. So you can turn and then move, or you can move and then turn. There's one to the right, there's one to the left. We also have a U-turn if you're ever backed into a corner, and similarly a U-turn plus a movement. So again, once again, you can either do the movement and then a U-turn, or a U-turn and then a movement. We also have this topple feature. So throughout the game, we're going to be toppling over these piles of these mountains that we're building. And whenever you kind of play one of these cards, you're going to topple over whatever pile is right above you. And I'll show you what that looks like in a little bit. But you're going to try to make things match your color up a little bit better. The last thing we have here is this rock. When you run into a rock underground, it's no good. So you want to probably draft this card, put a rock in front of other players, so that way it kind of disorients them a little bit. When you play that rock card, you can place this rock tile anywhere you want underground, and then on top of that, you roll this rock die, you place it on top of that, and it shows you what's going to happen whenever you run into that rock. You have to spend a movement getting onto the rock, basically, but then do whatever the dice says. So either turn left, right, or a U-turn, which can really mess someone's programming up. In turn order, what you're going to do is you are going to move around the board, resolving one card at a time. Let's say you move forward. You place a piece there. Maybe the next person would take their turn. Then we would maybe do a turn, and then do 1, 2, 3, let's say. Something like that. As they're moving around underground, the rules say the moles are very polite. So if they ever need to run into one another, they simply just wait their turn. So for instance, our gray mole over there, if he needs to move 2 spots forward, we'd go like this. He can move to 1 spot, but then the second spot is now blocked by the green player. That additional unit of movement is now canceled, unfortunately. But of course, as always, they're able to put the one dirt that they were able to do up there. Let's say on a future round, the green players will be able to move over here in this area over here. What's going to happen is, as they move around, they're going to push dirt up from the bottom. So for instance, this one here would get a gray underneath it. This one over here would get a gray underneath it. Whoever is on the bottom of the pile is going to be in control of it for scoring. Once all players have played all 4 of the cards that they had programmed, then you do a scoring round. So what's going to happen is you're going to count up all of the squares where you are on the bottom of that pile, and you're going to count up all of the tokens on that board. So for instance, this one here goes to gray, 1, 2. This also goes to gray, 3, 4. These 2 over in the corner also go to gray. So a total of 6 points going to gray. Over here, though, we have 1, 2, and 3 that the green player is going to score. You're going to put that on our score pad over here for the first round. As you can see, on the first round, we have a max height of 2. Later on, 3, 4, and eventually in the last round, you can go up to 5 piles high. That's going to matter when it comes to toppling things over. Toppling over a pile can happen when someone plays their topple card wherever they are. Say, for instance, if we're right underneath this spot here on 4A, right here in the corner, and we topple that over, we would get to choose which direction it toppled in. What that means is we're going to disassemble it, and we're going to kind of lay it down, and that kind of tells you where it's going to go. So the gray is going to stay where it's at. Let's say this green one would go on top of that. Basically, the dirt pile kind of fell over in that direction. Now, toppling can cause a chain reaction. So, for instance, right now in the first round, we can only go 2 high. Well, now because of maybe a card that was played, we have one that is 3 high. So now another topple is going to happen. Let's say we want to put it in that direction going forward. Well, the gray is now going to be by itself back where it started. This is going to go on top of this one. This is going to go on top of this one. That was a huge play for the green player. Now they're winning this round 5-4. We're going to play 6 rounds, and we're going to score at the end of each round based off of who is in charge of the bottom of each pile and how many stacks are on that pile. Our ability to grow higher and higher goes up each round, so that way that when it topples, more and more things can happen. At the end of the entire game, you're going to add up all 6 rounds. Whoever has the most victory points wins the game.
I am a huge fan of games that use the box in any way, type of form for the game. And this game does that because the platforms you put them on, you just stick these things, as Ryan showed you, just in the box and it's there. The box is part of the game. So I absolutely love that. And those little standees, the moles, how it's like these clear little standees. I thought that was really fun too. I thought those were really cute and fun to look at, and how the game was in the box, ready to go in the box.
I thought the whole 2-leveled, game board was going to be kind of a hassle, but guess what? It wasn't. It was pretty clear. Once you set it up, and you had the grid formation, the letters and the numbers along the sides, it was really easy to see, and clearly where if this one goes here, up here, I'm going to move that dirt up underneath all those wherever it went. So everything just made sense. It was all numbered very clearly. There was hardly any hassle at all. It was much smoother than I thought it would be at first glance.
Yeah, and it scaled itself pretty well to all player counts. So the board was actually smaller if you had 2-player, and then you flipped it over and there was a 3-player and a 4-player. And the reason why that was awesome is because it kind of forced you to interact with each other's molehills. Like if you had that larger grid in a 2-player game, you're just not going to interact with each other's molehills. But the interaction is what is fun in this game, when you accidentally do stuff or you're able to do what you want to do, and now all of a sudden you own all of these super tall molehills that your opponent had.
They're enemies. Let's be real.
But it's great. I like how, it's scaled really well to make that interaction happen while also still feeling like you had a little bit of control over what you were doing.
I love programming games. This had a really cool system of programming. It was very, very clear. You're just moving and turning and maybe turning around, the toppling, and then obviously the rocks. But everything, it was just very, very clear. It made a lot of sense. But on top of that, it was like the best kinds of programmings have is there's wrenches thrown into your system. You're not just going to be able to seamlessly do whatever it is that you want. You're going to run into other rocks that opponents put in your way. You're going to run into your opponents. You're going to run into the walls because of that. So, the saying, like, the best laid plans of mice and men.
Yeah.
But this is like the best laid plans of moles and men.
Oh, my.
Get it? Constantly disrupted, which makes it for some really, really fun turns. Sometimes it works out in your favor even a little bit.
Yeah.
You go in a direction that you weren't really planning on, but, oh, shoot, well, I'll just put some dirt over here then.
Okay, so I want to know in the comments what your best alliteration of this game would have been, like Ryan just did. I'm really curious to see what you all can come up with on, weird little things.
You can't top that one.
Yeah, it's a good one, but you should try. You should try to top it in the comments below. I would love to hear that. Okay, so I do feel like this game could get a little samey. I really enjoyed it. I liked playing it, but I feel like this is one that you probably don't want to play back to back or night after each other. Like, play it, have a good time, shelf it away, and then play it again in a couple of months. It wasn't one of those play over and over and over again games to me.
And good for another reason, too. I worry about the longevity of the boards and stuff. When you're doing a topple and you're pressing the things on top of them, I'm worried about it sagging. Everything's super, super high quality, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But this is also at the same time a very tactile kind of a game. And so even though with the best of components, anything can get worn down over time. And so it was one of my fears of mine if we were to play it day after day after day after day after day, wore down a little bit. Very, very minor concern. Hasn't happened yet. We've played it quite a bit, but still.
So the other day, story time, the other day I was on Board Game Geek, like all of us are always on Board Game Geek, and there was an advertisement for this on the banner. So my daughter was behind me, our 4-year-old, so she was behind me. And
I just taught her, like, recently.
Yeah, so they had just played it, maybe even that day, I don't remember, but they had just played it, and all of a sudden she shouts at me, she's like, "That's the game! That's the game I played with Dad! That game was so much fun! I want to go play that game now! That was the game!" So, she loved it, and when my kids like something, it definitely endears me towards the game in general. So this was a game that I thought was great. You can definitely play it in a family setting, and I feel like everybody's going to truly enjoy that.
Yeah, this game was clever. It was attractive, obviously. It was very tactile, the way you're moving everything around and kind of building on these things. It's a very building game. The programming was really, really fun. How it all comes together and makes your mind work. It was just a blast. It's not geared as a kid's game, but certainly as a family game that the whole family can play together. And our 4-year-old, this is not, on the box it says 9+, so this is not for her at all. But at the same time, she had a great time because we're helping her along.
You just walk her through, like, the programming and what that means.
Exactly. Yeah. And plus, she's actually a great randomizer. She's just kind of moving her stuff around, knocking things over, which was great. This is a fantastic family game, but good for gamers of all types.
All right, everybody, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe so you can see our videos as they come out. Until then, you can find us on TikTok. We are Ryan and Bethany. On Facebook, we're Ryan and Bethany Board Game Reviews. On Instagram, we are Ryan and Bethany. And on Twitter, we are Ryan and Bethany 1.
All right, everybody, thanks so much for watching it, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.